it's me, Natalie. I wanted to chat with you today about Anthony Trollope. The thing that I love about participating in readathons is the discovery of new things, and Victober is certainly one of those readathons where I always discover something new. It's only the second time I've done it, but both times have been full of revelations. So last Victober I discovered Thomas Hardy, who I adore, and Elizabeth Gaskell, who I adore. And this Victober, I have discovered Anthony Trollope. This was through my reading of The Warden, and if you've seen that vlog, you saw how I sort of struggled with it at the start and then came through, and now I'm on to the second book, Barchester Towers, in the Chronicles of Barsetshire series. I am addicted to these characters and all of their escapades, and I just need to know what happens. And for me, something amazing that will have come out of this Victober is this series in particular, but also the discovery of Anthony Trollope, who I've heard everybody talk about for so long. So I just, as I do, thought I would just find out a little bit more about Anthony Trollope. Who is this guy? What did he do? And I discovered something very interesting. Anthony Trollope was Australia's first celebrity visit. Yes, indeed. He was the first celebrity to ever come to Australia and tour around. So in 1871, Anthony Trollope arrived in Australia. He arrived in Adelaide. He came to visit his son, Frederick, who owned a sheep station in rural New South Wales. But during his visit, he was wined and dined by parliamentarians. He was shown through all the major exciting things that Australian life has to offer. And as a result, he wrote a book about us. It was called Australia and New Zealand, which I can't get my hands on yet. But he wasn't very nice in his book. No, he wasn't at all. He said some nice things, but we only focus on the negatives. He was disgusted by one of Adelaide's rivers. He was also disgusted by Bendigo and Ballarat, two country Victorian towns. He looked down his nose at our public institutions, especially the postal service, which he was a postal worker in Ireland and England. So he had sort of disparaging things to say about that. And he accused Australians of being braggarts. Fancy that. I took particular exception to this, as, you know, very patriotic as I am. And I was like, how dare he? We're on the other side of the world. What does he expect for us? Like, I was really cranky. And I was like, right, that's it. I'm not going to read any more Anthony Trollope. He doesn't like Australia, and I'm going to show him. And then I thought, maybe that's being a little petty. And I'm enjoying the book so much that I'm reading. I can't possibly give it up now. But I just thought that was a really interesting story, that I decided to dive into who Anthony Trollope was, and it turns out that he had some connection to Australia. A little bit negative, but there it is. Anyway, I also discovered that he wrote 47 novels, and so I thought I would just look through them all and see, you know, which ones excite me. So I've got 5 Anthony Trollope books here that I want to read in the future. I don't know if I can read all 47, but it's fun to have found a new author and to start to work your way through their catalogue. Of course, I'll be finishing this series off first, that's for sure, but these are 5 standalone books that took my interest. So the first book that I want to read, because I'm petty and still a little bit salty from his comments, is the book that Anthony Trollope wrote on his way to Australia aboard the ship. And this was published in 1974. This is called Lady Anna. Lady Anna is about a noble woman who falls in love with her tailor. And the social class thing really interests me, and this is about how Lady Anna resolves, I think she becomes engaged to this tailor, and so has to work through how to sort of handle this in her sort of noble circles within London. I find that stuff, the commentary on social class, really interesting. So Lady Anna is one I'm excited to pick up. The next book I want to read is a book called The Way We Live Now, and this was the book that he published when he arrived home from Australia. I'm kind of sticking to that. I'm a little bit salty still. This was published in 1875 and was inspired by the financial scandals in London in the early 1870s. So this book kind of follows this dude called Augustus Melmotte, who is rumoured to have done some dodgy deals in Vienna, but moves his family to London and starts to wine and dine the rich and powerful in London to invest in his railroad scheme that runs from the US down to Mexico, something like that. And he this follows Augustus and his obvious downfall, and one of the investors called Felix, who falls in love with one of Melmotte's daughters. And I think everybody kind of loses everything, but it would be interesting to see kind of the progression, well, not the progression, but the decline of those who invest with Augustus and obviously get swindled along the way. So yeah, I like a bit of, financial dodgy deals, gossips, rich people investing in the wrong thing, gossipy kind of book. So this looks fun to me. Oh, that makes me sound really mean. Like, I like people's downfall. I don't want to see people get swindled out of their money, but it's a very interesting story, those stories. So it'll be interesting to see it in the 1870s in London, that's for sure. The next book I want to read is called The Three Cloaks. This was published in 1858, and this is said to be the most autobiographical of all of Anthony Trollope's works. Anthony Trollope worked in the postal office while he was writing these books, so he draws on that experience and writes The Three Clerks around two friends. And these friends start off in sort of a public, like a government department kind of thing, and it's about their progression in their careers. One goes on to spend time in Parliament, and Anthony Trollope tried to do that as well, tried to be an elected member of Parliament, but I think that all didn't go so well. Anyway, and then that guy in Parliament gets dodgy advice, and also there's this sort of sub-story about the two friends who fall in love with the same girl. So there's a bit of romance behind it as well. So yeah, I think that it would be interesting to look at the life of the working class, but in a government sort of setting during the late 1800s. Yeah, that's why this book caught my attention. The next one I want to read is called Orley Farm, and this was published in 1862. This caught my attention obviously because of the farm and the rural setting, but I don't think that's what it's about at all. This is about a lawsuit. So there's a will, this man dies, and he leaves his farm to his second wife and her son. But there's some question about sort of this excerpt in the will that was put in, that she hand wrote, and then the witnesses to that, one has died, and there's all of this sort of lawsuit over the ownership of this farm. And so there's lots of characters when I read the synopsis of this book, but I think it would be interesting to see how a legal case progresses in this time, but also hopefully there's a bit of sort of farming life. I think the farm is set not far from London, so it's not completely rural, but there might be some little excerpts of how the farm progresses through the lawsuit. I don't know, that's what I'm hoping for anyway. But yeah, that one caught my attention as well. And then the last book that caught my attention is called Castle Richmond, and this was published in 1860. This caught my attention because it's set in Ireland. It's set on the banks of a river in the county of Cork. Is that right? Never been to Ireland. But it is also set at the beginning of the Irish famine. So all of those things put together immediately caught my attention. This is about two cousins who are English that fight for the hand of a girl who is the daughter of who is of noble birth, and she's the daughter of a widowed countess. Yeah. And they've, you know, hit hard times, obviously, being that it's set within the Irish famine. So that's kind of secondary to me, that story. What I'm most interested in is, is the story around people dealing with these famine conditions, and also how the authorities help them and what they do to try and ease the pain for the Irish people. So all of that is supposed to be in this book, and if it is, then I'm pumped. I would really enjoy that. So there's my notes. So they're my 5 Anthony Trollope books that I'm eager to get onto, but only after I finish The Chronicles of Barsetshire. What about you? Do you love Trollope? Have you read any of those 5 books and need to tell me anything about it? If there's some you want to read, tell me, and we'll work out a way we can try and read them together eventually. I'm not going to start reading them now. But the most exciting thing for me is this discovery of Trollope that I've made during Victober. And once again, a Victober readathon has come through and given me such joy with a new author. And I'm very thankful for that. Okay, lovely friends. Thanks for joining me in a Trollope discussion. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.